Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, gonna talk about a subject that I talk about a lot on here. Yes, the economy, inflation, hyperinflation. I think it's becoming a very prominent issue in our time, and who knows, maybe I'll just be making these videos on a weekly basis. Once a week, let's have our hyperinflation talk for the week. But there's some things that I think you need to know about, and just a if nothing else, a constant reminder that our economy is in a tailspin, okay? And there's signs all around of that, and of all the things that are going on. This is epically huge, folks. I mean, this is a big one. We could very easily end up like Venezuela, and I think some of us have been talking about that for the last few years, but it is becoming more and more of a reality, and we need to wake up to it, realize that that's what's going on, and prepare accordingly. Now, that being said, I want to make it clear, I am no financial expert. I am no financial advisor. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Do your own research. But there are some things that's just constantly happening that's showing us more and more that this is the path that we are headed down. And probably there's no way to turn this car around. I think we're like a big ship at sea, and we're stuck going this way, and it's just too much, too hard, too long to get it turned around at this point, maybe past the point of no return. So I want to talk about that here in just a minute. Before I get started, I want to talk about a product that is really good. It's something that I stand behind, and with all these troubling times out there, it's probably a good idea to be stocking up. And there's many different items of food that you need to be stocking up, but one of those could be emergency freeze-dried foods. And My Patriot Supply is one of the best out there producing very high-quality emergency freeze-dried products. You can go to preparewithtravis.com, preparewithtravis.com. I'll have a link down in the description. It should be the first link down there, and that'll take you to their site. And they're actually running some specials right now, some sales on some of their products. So it'd be a good time to stock up now, because things are kind of going down in the tank, and it wouldn't hurt to have a few on hand. All right, so on to the hyperinflation. I think I'll also leave a link to a podcast. Glenn Beck, you all probably know who he is. And, I think the man's finally starting to come around. He's been right on some things in the past over the years, but I think he's starting to really wake up of the deeper things that are really going on in the world. And one of his recent podcasts, or his recent shows, he talked about inflation, hyperinflation. He has been talking about it lately, and this one had some really good facts in it. And we live in a world where facts just almost don't exist anymore. So I would also encourage you to listen to this podcast if you get a chance. One of the things that he pointed out, and I had read before listening to this, there's an article out about a few days ago about Bank of America, one of the largest banks on the planet. Bank of America has said that we are now in transitionary hyperinflation. Transitionary hyperinflation. Now, I want to say again, this is one of the largest banks in America. This is not some right-wing conspiracy theorist YouTuber on here trying to get you all hyped up to buy their product. This is not some crazy bearded guy stuck in the Ozark woods that just wants to get more views on his show, so he talks about something to get people to click on it. This is one of the largest banks in the world that is talking and using the words hyperinflation. They've actually used that, and they're saying that we are in a period of transitionary hyperinflation. And they actually released some information, and this statement was made in a call with some of their investors and stuff, and they were talking about that recently that the amount of people, investors and stuff, calls that they're getting in that are asking, that are inquiring, that are trying to get advice on how to manage their money and things of that sort, that are talking about inflation and hyperinflation has skyrocketed. And there's a chart here, and what this chart is, where it just shoots straight up. That's the amount of recent inquiries from their shareholders and members and account holders that are concerned with inflation and hyperinflation. And they believe that we're in a period of transitionary hyperinflation. And this is pretty significant for, I feel, for a major banking player to talk about, to use these words. There's hardly an economist out there, a financial advisor out there that is denying the fact that we are in a period of inflation right now. The numbers, some of the numbers are the worst that this nation has ever seen, that our economy has ever seen, and some of them are at least as bad as the 2008 mortgage crisis, and quite possibly as bad as the inflation during the 1970s. Glenn Beck points this out in his podcast. The 1970s, when we went through the inflation there, it was getting to the point that it could have started to go from inflation to hyperinflation. And the Fed did something, as much as none of us like the Fed. What they did is they raised interest rates. And a lot of people didn't like that, and a lot of you probably still think that was a horrible idea. But what it did is it stopped the inflation. It slowed it down. By the time Reagan got into office, inflation had gone from about 17% down to like 4%. So it drastically dropped inflation, and it brought the market back to a stable state. And it was because of one of the main things was because of raising the interest rates that stopped all the spending and the creation of money. Because that's what happens. There's too much money out there, and it begins to lose its value. And so too many times, some governments, like our own, their solution to that is to, print more money. What, you're saying we've printed so much money that the value of the dollar has dropped? Well, I've got an idea. Let's just print some more money. Let's spend some more money. Let's go into even more debt. And so by raising the rates, they stopped that, slowed it down maybe to a screeching halt, and it cooled off the markets. The problem is now that that's not possible. The Fed has said, we might consider raising the rates in a couple of years, but we think we're going to keep it, low like it is now, and just kind of monitor. The thing is that it's not even possible to raise the interest rates, at least enough to actually have an effect on this inflation. It's not possible, because when they raise the rates, then it raises the amount of debt that they have to pay, because it raises the debt on the bonds that they have out. And so what that would mean, about right now, we are paying an average of $500 billion in debt every year. That's what the federal government is paying in debt, is $500 billion. If we raised the interest rates to the levels of the 1970s, we would be paying $2.5 to $3 trillion a year in debt, just in interest. That's just in interest on the debt. So let me clarify. That's just interest on the debt. It would not be possible. And the reason is because we have an astronomical amount of debt. Back when that happened, in the 70s, when they raised the interest rates, the national debt was below $1 trillion, around $700 billion. The debt to GDP ratio was hovering around 35%. Now we're looking at a minimum of 28 trillion, and they expect by the end of this year, with all the extra spending, that it will be somewhere between 30.5 to 31 trillion in national debt. And currently our debt to GDP ratio is about 135, and it will continue to go up, 135%. These are numbers that we've never seen as a nation before. And many economists believe that we are past that point of no return. that there's no way to turn this ship around and get us out of this impending doom of hyperinflation. That at some point we're either going to hyperinflate or the entire economy, dollar, everything is just going to absolutely crash. That there's no way to turn it around. We're in too much debt. There's no way to pay that debt off. There's no way to restrict the money flow without crashing the economy. That basically anything they do at this point is going to crash the economy. So I think that they're basically, their idea is to just let it to slowly die like it is, and it's not really slowly dying anymore. As you all know, prices are skyrocketing everywhere. And they're going to continue to skyrocket. And there's all these reasons why food prices are up and lumber prices are up and corn prices are up and all these other commodities. The real reason is because our money is becoming less and less valuable. It has less value to it. This isn't a secret. They know this. Our government knows this. Our leadership knows this. And the fact is that the rest of the world knows this. China and Russia, they've been investing in gold. They've been investing in cryptocurrencies. And here in America, we've been spending money. We've been printing more money. And they're printing it, a lot of us say, well, my goodness, all these new programs and these new stimulus programs and spending bills that are being proposed, most of them are in the trillions. And if you add them all up, you're talking $6 to $10 trillion over the next just couple of years, which is just astronomical. And you're thinking, man, they're just spending money like it's going out of style. Well, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly why they're doing it. They know that the end is coming. They see it on the horizon. And so they're doing everything they can to set themselves up, to set up their system, their way, what they're wanting to happen by spending the money that they can to get the policies and everything in place before it completely bottoms out. And I don't know how many of you have really looked in to what has happened in nations that's gone through hyperinflation. It's not good. It's never good. And I think Venezuela is probably one of the better examples, because Venezuela, number one, was a modern country. And at the time that they started to hyperinflate, beforehand, their economy, while they weren't anywhere near as big as the United States, they were a strong economy. They were a bustling, modern nation. They were the second highest purchaser of F-154 pickups, second to the United States. They were one of the largest oil exporters and crop exporters, vegetable crops. They were a strong, modern nation. And now, not so much. Their government still exists. The people still have money. The people can still buy things, but not very well. They go through periods of, their electricity is on and then days where it's off. The people there are dealing with malnutrition. Not to the point necessarily of starvation, although it does happen, but it's mostly malnutrition because they're not able to get what they need. And the reason why this is all happening isn't just because of their hyperinflation. It's because they also have transitioned during this period, and beforehand, but especially during this period while their economy was crashing, they went from a modern capitalist, free market, for the most part, a nation that was, people, they very much had the similar freedoms to a modern democracy, and not quite to the level of the United States, but what would be considered a modern free democracy. And then that all changed too. That's what led them to the hyperinflation, because they switched to a socialist and very near communist style of government, and especially a very socialist economy. And so they're dealing with the hyperinflation while they're dealing with a very extreme socialist, Marxist form of government now. And that's what we're headed to. We're not only dealing with an economy that's crashing, a dollar that's hyperinflating, we're also dealing with a government that's very rapidly heading in the direction of Marxism. And so that's why I feel that Venezuela is an excellent example of what very well could happen here in the United States. where it's not necessarily going to be the complete destruction, but we're going to see poverty rates skyrocket. We're going to see you know, people unable to purchase the things that they need just for daily survival, homelessness skyrocketing, poor health skyrocketing, malnutrition skyrocketing, violence, civil wars and small scales. We're going to see that because you're going to have, you know, hyperinflation, you know, a money system that's no longer really valid and worth anything. And then you're going to have all these social problems and political problems, and you add all that to already the things that are happening. It is a recipe for disaster, folks. And so I don't know how to stress this more enough to kind of get through to everyone. A lot of you are already awake on this, and a lot of you already know this. But when you look at the patterns that are happening when it comes to our economy, our spending habits, our you know, the interest rates and crashing dollar, basically, everyone moving to trying to purchase cryptocurrencies and trying to hurry up and purchase, you know, precious metals and stuff, moving their money around because so many of these individuals, especially the wealthy, they see this coming, they see it happening. I at this point, in my very much unexpert opinion, I don't know that there's a way for us to get out of this. So I just want to bring this up once again, and maybe we can make this a weekly topic to cover, of the state of hyperinflation. What's the status of it? Because I believe it is happening. I believe we're in the beginnings of it, and it's, you know, another thing that I wanted to point out. The inflation, the official inflation rate now is like, what, 4.6 or something. And while that's a little high, most people are like, well, you know, it's gone up, but that's still a reasonable amount. That's not like extremely high inflation rates. Here's the thing. They figure inflation differently now. That 4.6 isn't the same thing as 4.6 inflation back in the 70s. It's basically, it's a different standard now for how they figure the number. They've basically rebranded it and changed the way that they figure inflation. And there are several private financial institutions that's done the numbers crunching themselves, and they say that we're somewhere between 8 and 13% inflation. That it's basically how that they're figuring inflation now is how they're coming up with that small number. So don't just believe that, you know, oh, well, it's only 4.6 or 4.7%. That's not extremely bad. We got a long way to go till we get to 14, 15% inflation. Well, we're just about there if we're not already there at those numbers. It's just the difference of how they adjust it and how they come to the conclusion of what inflation is, especially when you look at virtually every commodity. Every commodity out there is at least double and some triple-digit inflation numbers. There's no possible way inflation could only be 4.6%. So get your house in order, folks. Prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually, because when we hit hyperinflation, it's going to be a whole different world for a lot of people, and it's going to create an immense amount of chaos for people that are not prepared, that don't even know what it means and have no clue of how to survive through that. It is going to be epically horrible. So it's something to certainly prepare for. All right, folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.